Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome to my hobby blog. I did not plan on doing this with you. This is very spontaneous for me, but I just saw probably one of the best movies of recent memory. I think it's up there with films like Seven Samurai, Brighter Summer Day by Edward Yang, who has a direct connection to this director here, and maybe even The Human Connection. Human Connection, I think, is one of the best movies of all time. Come and See, I think, is also up there as one of the best movies, but for different reasons. But this movie was made in 1972, directed by the godfather of Taiwanese cinema, somebody who actually just died last year at the age of 91. His name is Li Jing, and this is the film Execution in Autumn. I fucking loved this movie. This is probably one of the best movies that I have seen in a very long time. Made in 1972 again, and I'm just going to read the synopsis of what this film is about, and then I'll kind of give more my reactions and more about the actual release of this, because I ended up going through everything because that's how awesome this movie is. I really, really enjoyed this one. So I will start. I think I'll read all of it and along with the synopsis. So, referred to as the godfather of Taiwanese cinema, the films of director Li Jing, who passed in 2021 at the age of 91, combine Western realism with the Neo-Confucian ideals advocated by the nationalist government in Taiwan. Director of a number of masterpieces, presented here is the film he considered his personal favorite of all his films, and certainly his most successful, winning 5 Golden Horse Awards, which is basically the Oscars but for Taiwan. I added in that last bit, but here's the story. Since his childhood, Pei Gong, played by Wu Wei, has been spoiled by his rich grandmother who raised him after the death of his parents. Unable to control himself in a fit of rage, Gong kills a pregnant woman who indicated him as the father of her unborn child and her cousins. For this, he is sentenced to death and will be beheaded in autumn, the traditional season for executions. His grandmother tries to save him, but this proves to be a task beyond her means, so she makes him marry the young Lian Tong Pao Yun, is the actress, an orphan raised within the family in prison, so that the Pei line does not die out. Featuring a screenplay by Chang Yung Sheng, who also wrote another Li Sheng masterwork, Beautiful Duckling, Execution Autumn comes to Blu-ray for the first time ever as part of the Masters of Cinema series in time for its 50th anniversary. Okay, I love this movie. There is so much drama throughout the entirety of it. The dialogue is so great. It is so just very poetic, beautiful, very just really great. I don't have many other adjectives, but this movie, the acting in it too, is just phenomenal. Our main actor, our main actor, Wu Wei, he, as I learned in the Tony Raines interview, which, again, Tony Raines is one of the best contributors to physical media and special features, because he has an amazing interview on here all about kind of the history of Taiwanese cinema and also the works of sort of early Taiwanese filmmakers, and leading up to the 70s, there were really no films being made in Taiwan. they said there were about 130, I think, the year that this movie came out, and 10% of it was in the native language that the Taiwanese spoke around that time instead of Mandarin, because China did eventually take over that island. But there's a lot of just layers to this movie that I'm still sort of processing and getting through my head, because I did not realize that there was a big connection between all these different films that I love, such as this film here that is directed by King Hu in 1960. Of course, it's hard to find. I hate it when they don't have it readily available on the box. I don't know what year this came out. I'm so sorry, but this is the film. Fuck. Okay. This is Come Drink With Me by King Hu. A film that is very wonderful. I highly recommend it. But this film in particular was the final film that King Hu made. And then he left Shaw Brothers, which is the very popular, very high quality studio from China that specialize in kind of wuxia films. And if you haven't already, go through that box set. The Arrow Video Shawscope Volume 1, I guess. Volume 2 comes out soon. But after he made Come Drink With Me, he left the country and went to Taiwan. And this is around the time that he met Li Zhang, the director of Execution in Autumn. And from there, they started making films. And Li Zhang had been making films since the late 50s. And Tony Raines talks about this in the interview, about how very few of them are even available. There are no sources left that even have the prints or the negatives or anything like that. And they're very hard to find anyways, because he's not really credited for those films. There are passing mentions about it, but it was around 1963 that Lee started to actually get pretty well known for the films that he was directing. And he directed for about 10 years, or I guess 9 years, and then in 1971, he wanted to make the film that he would always say was his favorite, and one that was a total passion project for him. And he usually did more modern period dramas than this film. This film takes place in the Han Dynasty, which happened around 200 BC to 200 AD, or I guess CE, current era. And while most of his other films take place in the 800s and sooner. And this movie is all about our main character, Pei Gong, having to wrestle with accepting death or impending death, because autumn is the season of executions, as was said in the synopsis, but he does not accept it at all. He actively fights people. He is whipped. He is tortured various times in the first half. And because he kills a pregnant woman and her family, we don't like him. And he goes to trial very early in the film. And they say, like, you're despicable. Like, we get it that you defended yourself against the two cousins, but killing a pregnant woman who was begging you to not kill her, and just everything with that, and that he chose to kill her anyways just because he was pissed at her, they sent him to the jail for, I guess, holding until he, I guess, gets executed in autumn. And this happens right at autumn, so they have an entire year to execute him, or to wait to execute him. And during that year, we get him really wrestling with accepting his death. and a lot of well, not a lot of characters, but a lot of different types of characters come in and out of the narrative with our Pei Gong character, and one of them is Liana, who grew up with him. She was in another family. We aren't really told anything about her background outside the fact that the grandmother of Pei Gong brought her in because her parents died, and it's hinted at it was because of I guess being impoverished, and that they are a distant cousins to each other. So we are given not many details on it, but we don't really need to. We're given just enough information that it works really well. And we get a lot of dialogue between Pei Gong and Liana, where they are reminiscing about growing up together and thinking how Pei Gong was totally terrifying to Liana, and just all this back and forth. And oh my gosh, the acting in this movie is so good. And I learned during the Tony Raines interview, because I did watch it. There's a 44-minute interview with him all about this movie and all about the history of Taiwanese cinema, and sort of just leading up to this movie and then talking about after this movie in regards to the director's history and what films he made. And oh my gosh, there was just so much that he discussed. But everything that goes on between these two characters in the second half of the film are so riveting. I really loved the chemistry and sort of the slow evolution of the relationship, because they were sort of step brothers or step siblings, but he and her never really saw each other as siblings, and they weren't really siblings. She was from a totally different family, but they eventually have to convince him, the grandmother and Liana, to get married to him and then birth an heir to the family, because he is a lone son in a series of lone sons. His father was a lone son of the family, and his father, on top of that, was also a lone son. So I guess they felt pretty lucky that he was a lone son, because something with patterns, but he is the only one. So if he's getting executed, the name dies with him. And the grandmother, this is what I really loved about her arc, is all about her wrestling with the idea that her name is just going to disappear after her death, because she's elderly, and then after his death within the year. So there's a countdown for her, and so she tries to find somebody for him to marry, and she's not successful. And she goes to Liana and says, hey, I really need you to do this. I cannot have my family name die. And Liana agrees and says, okay, sure. And this is when the relationship gets really interesting, because she goes to him and says, like, hey, like, we gotta do the thing in order for you to carry on your name with me. And we're already married, by the way. And he's not particularly happy about it and says, yeah, sorry, I'm not doing this. And she accepts and does not fight about it. And when she leaves, she discovers that the grandmother has been outside in the snow, because it's now winter. And she's been out in the snow this entire time for hours. And she collapses. And that's when she succumbs to her death pretty soon after. And so now it's just him and Liana going back and forth, trying to sort of deal with the idea and acceptance of dying, and whether he should escape or accept and not lose honor in running away and causing a lot of stresses to his new wife and maybe son later on. But there's a whole lot going on, and we also have prisoner characters that come in and out of the narrative, where he is kind of bouncing off, I guess, his philosophies and ideologies to them, because they're all doomed to be executed, and one of them gets let go, gets pardoned by the magistrate, and then another one, I can't firmly remember what happened with him, but he leaves too, and so it's just our main character in the jail. And they go, the jailers are going back and forth, taunting him. They are torturing him, whipping him, making him grind oats and wheat for many hours a day. His grandmother shows up a few times in the beginning and tries to convince them, like, hey, my I think nephew is coming to the national government and is going to get a pardon. Like, you should just let him go. Like, it's going to happen. And ends up that the uncle of our main character, he just takes the money and runs and comes back a couple months later, and it's too late by that point. And the grandmother has died, and now Liana has to deal with him in regards to the house, to the household, and to the property, and just everything surrounding that once the grandmother has died. And oh my gosh, I can go on all day about this, but another thing that should be mentioned is that the music is really fucking good, and there's a reason for that. It was done, I don't know if I can find the name, but it was done by a Korean composer for a lot of films. He has over 300 credits as a composer, and I just have one of his, which isn't his last one. Execution in Autumn was the last movie that he ever did a score for, but one of the most notable ones that everyone knows of is one that I personally love. It's a 1952 Japanese film by Kenji Mizoguchi, named The Life of Oharu. This movie is awesome. Really great score in this one too. Kenji Mizoguchi is, I guess, technically the godfather of Japanese cinema, is I think what I've heard about him, but the music in this movie and Execution in Autumn is really good. It really adds another layer to the to all the different scenes. Try not to burp on screen, sorry. But all the music just really, it's just another layer on the cake. It's just, great dialogue, great characters, great cinematography, great music, great themes. Like, it has everything. This movie was so incredible. There were many tear-jerking moments throughout this film because the first half of this movie is like right down the middle, this entire film. The first half, is us just hating him and saying, good, he should be executed. And then we get more details about his upbringing and his life up to this point. And we get a lot of deliberations going back and forth about, does he deserve to die? And then the second half, we understand who he is now. We get him. We know his upbringing. We know his background. And we start to sort of root for him. Yes, he did something absolutely terrible in the beginning of the film by killing a pregnant woman and 2 other men. But we still feel sympathetic towards him by the end of the film. And there were many tear-jerking moments throughout this film. I was kind of surprised when suddenly a tear just went down my cheek. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know. I was so sucked into the movie. And after finishing it, I just kind of sat there. I just thought about it. I processed it, and I'm still not done processing it, but I watched the Tony Raines interview, and I recommend everybody to listen to that. And I am not an expert at all in Taiwanese cinema. I'd like to think that I have a good handle on Japanese cinema, but I just feel like I barely scratched the surface. Just in Asian cinema in general, even. And the interview with Tony Raines, just, my gosh, that could be an entire class period in film school, just listening to him talk. I wish I could have wrote down all the different film titles that he was discussing, but I have a physical release of this, so I can rewatch his interview and do that. But this also comes with a really great essay written by Philip Kemp. Not sure who he is. Not a name that I'm familiar with, but that one is all about sort of the history of Taiwan in general, and then it goes into the history of Taiwanese cinema, and then the history of Li Zhang, the director. And oh my gosh, so many great points in that, but oh my gosh, I don't know what else to say. This is one of the best releases of this year, in my opinion. Not many special features. You don't get, hundreds of interviews and documentaries and commentary tracks. You get one really great 45-minute Tony Raines interview all about the film, and then you get a great essay. And also, I haven't even mentioned this, it also comes with a restoration footage comparison. I wish every release did this, at least for movies that have been restored from a negative. They basically have the scene, just like it is here, how you're watching me, except they split it down the middle, and on this side, they have the before restoration, and then the after restoration. You get to see it, and every now and then they turn the little dividing line between the two, prints of the film, and they show it. They show just random clips throughout the film, and oh my god, the work that they did on this restoration is really fucking good. Oh my god. I wish more releases had that. It would be so much fun to just sit down and just watch, an hour's worth of various different movies, in an afternoon. Popping in, some Kurosawa movies, and then looking at, Night of the Living Dead, looking at the restoration from the original negative to what it becomes in the Criterion edition. But, oh my gosh. I need to watch more films by this director because holy shit, I really enjoyed it. The only issue is it's a nitpick of mine on this release, but they have the little region B rating on this. The BBFC rating, the British Broadcasting Film Commission, whatever. But this is a very special movie. I was blown away by it. It's definitely one of my favorite movies that I've seen in the last few months, for sure. But, oh my god. I think that's it for today. I did not even mean to do a review tonight on this. Didn't even mean to watch it tonight, but I am very, very happy to have done so. That is it for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the day.